Hi, what is the most common or the easiest decisions some of the executives or managers make whenever their company is in a problem or when they face with tough situations? It is laying off some of their staff members. Laying off staff is so instilled in some of the businesses where some of the executives and managers think that it is the right way to reduce costs. But what are the problems they create? It creates more problems than what is the saving that it is going to bring. What companies lose when they shed workers is the amount of time that they have invested in their training and the knowledge that they have gained working in the company for so many years and the relationships that they have. What we are talking about here is not about firing of the employees, firing due to some disciplinary actions or for that matter some of the performance issues. What we are talking here is about layoff due to strategic reasons. It could be towards reducing cost of the company, relocation of the company, mergers or acquisitions, restructuring the organization, or because of changes that has happened in the marketplace. The economic activities have been significantly impacted because of this pandemic, and many of the companies have either laid off or are planning to lay off employees as per certain reports. Some of the organizations say that they have already laid off nearly 20 to 30% of their employees. Some of them have reduced their salaries, and there are some which have not reduced their salaries and are not have any plans or willing to do any layoffs in near future. And there are also companies which have reduced their staff and they don't intend to recruit them for the next 3 years. In fact, all industries are suffering because of this pandemic, and because of this pain, it is translating into layoff at every industry, at every level. As the pandemic issue continues and as it evolves, the damage that it is giving to the job market seems to be long lasting and very deep. Is laying off employees the only solution? What are the alternatives that we have instead of layoffs? And if layoff is the only solution to keep the organization running, how can we manage to do so? Let's see this in this video. One of the toughest decisions any management makes is layoff, which is not only high on emotions when the entire family's income and future is put on line, and this could also lead to legal proceedings in some cases. What is important to note is that companies which considers downsizing as the only solution to their problems ends up losing more than what it thinks they gain. Many a times, the real reason for losing markets and companies making huge losses are because of its strategic decisions. The executives who are taking these layoff decisions is probably the same that started the downfall, making the wrong strategic decisions. What is more alarming is that many of the executives and board members think that shareholders like to hear about layoffs and would probably think that the company is doing something serious to come back on its way and things are getting rectified. There are studies which shows that companies with few or no layoffs performed significantly better than those with large number of layoffs. There are instances where large shares prices remained consistent in companies that let go 3 to 5% of their employees, and prices plunged nearly 40% where companies fired more than 10% of their workforce. The point is that laying off staff is not the solution which a lot of employers think it is. It might be inevitable sometimes, especially when it is linked to strategy, but not the ultimate cost-saving answer. There are a lot of other alternatives. Let me quote here views of Mr. Ratan Tata, chairman of Tata Trust, which he shared recently in an interaction with the website Your Story. He said, businesses will need to show sensitivity to all stakeholders and not just shareholders to survive post-COVID-19. He said, Companies will have to change the way they do business, and laying off staff is not the only solution. Accept that you have to change in terms of what you consider is fair and necessary in order to survive. One cannot continue to do business in certain ways, and one won't survive if you are not sensitive to all your stakeholders. Laying off people will not help you solve your problems, as you have responsibility to those employees. He also touched upon the migrant crisis which plagued India's labour force during April and May, when the country was under a strict lockdown to curb the spread of the pandemic. The way migrant labourers were left to fend for themselves with no work, food, place to stay speaks volumes on lack of business ethics, he said. Some other important points made by him are: layoffs by Indian companies amid the COVID-19 pandemic was a knee-jerk reaction and show lack of empathy among the top leadership. Business is not only about making money, one has to do everything right and ethically for customers and stakeholders. It is important to survive as a company if one is not sensitive to its people. Making mistakes is a part and parcel of business. The important thing is to do the right thing at every turn and not shy away from difficult decisions. Whatever your reasons may be, you have to change in terms of what you consider fair or good or necessary in order to survive. It is worth mentioning that Tata Group has not fired any staff, while several companies have cut workforce because of lack of cash flow after the countrywide lockdown. However, the conglomerate has slashed salaries of its top management by up to 20%. Many Tata Group company firms, including its hotels, airlines, auto business and financial services, are badly hit in the pandemic-induced slowdown but have not fired employees to date. Before laying off employees, consider how much layoffs will cost your company in the long run. On top of paying severance, isolating employees and risking litigation, the morale hit may hurt productivity among survivors. And when business improves, the company will be burdened with the cost of recruiting and training new employees. Here are some alternatives to layoffs. It would be great to seek ideas and suggestions from staff about how to cut costs and improve productivity. Getting employees involved can ease insecurity and also promote solidarity, even though the savings does not match the overall expectations. Many of the large companies will exchange workers with other employers within their own umbrella of subsidiaries and associates. Instead of sourcing contract workers from outside, smaller firms can choose to have them from their own parent companies and take the necessary skill set. The mutual benefits could be retaining the necessary skilled staff, retention of employees, and temporary wage relief. Another alternative is to cut the extra costs like freezing additional hiring and cut bonuses, raising salaries, unnecessary travel and overtime, defer the not so important expenditure including capex and other equipment upgrades. Another alternative could be to reduce the number of hours employees work and proportionately decrease pay. This can also be a seasonal arrangement or temporarily for such time till the economy improves. Reduction decisions to be made company-wise or division-wise or department-wise rather than an employee-specific wise. These changes need to be established and announced well in advance of implementation, and the employees need to be paid as per the work they have performed. Many of the employees would love to go for extra vacation and would find this agreeable even if it's unpaid. Another alternative could be considering wage and benefit cuts, and such moves will go over better when they start at the top. Some experts say it can help better if the blow of a bigger cut is taken up by the top management than the rest of the company. One can also free up office space to rent or downsize by keeping essential staff on site and sending everybody else home to work remotely. Reducing part-time staff and contractors can be another alternative. It's legally easier and cheaper to end their employment or rehire as necessary. Instead of using costly temps to fill gaps, consider rehiring retired employees that already know your business practices. As this pandemic continues to evolve, the damage it is going to give economy and the job market looks likely to be deep and long lasting. Many senior managers are not only dealing with the sadness and the stress of having to let go many of their workers, some of them are also feeling anxiety about their own positions. Even if laying off employees is the only way to keep the organization running, how to accept and handle feelings of regret and sadness? What about employees who remain in the organization and how to manage fear about one's own future? Laying off employees is difficult in normal times, but amidst the COVID-19 global health crisis, the task is sensitive, emotional, and psychologically overwhelming. But the key is to try as best as you can to separate your personal worries from the task at hand. What is important is that as a manager, you need to be there for your people, and here are some recommendations. First thing is to ask yourself, is downsizing the workforce necessary? Cutting costs is understandable, but this is not a periodic recession. Rather, this pandemic represents an exceptional moment that will end up being crucial for the economy and for people's careers and lives. And it might warrant a different response. What is needed is resourceful, creative thinking about how your organization can save as many jobs as possible. One need to look into making sacrifices elsewhere, other options to reduce costs. Goal should be to think broadly to distribute the widespread negative consequence of this pandemic, and laying off people should be the last resort. And if you must do layoffs, make every effort to avoid several rounds of cuts. It can also happen that some of you would have presided over layoffs in the past. Overseeing them during the coronavirus outbreak will be different for one key reason. They won't take place in person because of social distancing measures. What's more, you need to have a highly private conversation at a time when privacy is difficult to achieve. So you need to take the employee into confidence, as they may anticipate what's coming, and some people aren't going to have the psychological resources to deal with it. Once you decide layoffs are necessary, or for that matter if others have taken that decision for you, then make sure you're prepared how and when you will inform the news to the concerned employees, and how you are going to put it before the affected employees. It is but obvious that they will have a lot of questions about the timing of layoff, their benefits, and their future. Being human is another way of showing compassion during these tough times. Your message should be clear, concise, and unambiguous, expressing gratitude for their hard work and dedication. One can also give a short and simple explanation about the economic conditions that led to the layoff, and this has nothing to do about a specific job performance, but due to the current global circumstances which no one is aware of. What is also needed is to keep the tone right, as you need to take extra care to break the news with more compassion and empathy. Most importantly, the aim should be to treat people with dignity, respect, and fairness. Another way of managing is willing to provide support and help and being readily available to your employees, even after the initial conversation, because employees might come back for advice. Be helpful, but don't give false promises or false hope, because no one knows when the economy will improve. In times like these, your remaining employees will also look towards you for comfort and an explanation. The survivors are going to be worried about their jobs as well. The fact is, no one knows where this is going to end, so the onus is on you to be as transparent as possible. You will need a concise explanation for such layoffs and why they are necessary. You would also need to explain the challenges being faced by the organization due to the current pandemic and the reasons for doing so and how to move on. One should also be prepared to absorb their views and concerns. And lastly, most importantly, you need to take care of yourself, as hopefully this is the only time you will face something of this magnitude during a period of great uncertainty. All effort should be done to take time for self-care, including exercise and meditation, with a positive outlook, which will probably help, as there are a lot of people going through this, unfortunately. So, to conclude, is laying off employees the only solution to company problems? It is not. But during times of crisis and great difficulties, such as this, many of the most compelling and tremendous solutions have been found. For those who are laying off staff as part of cutting costs, need to think, revisit their calculations, show empathy and respect to those who have worked for them for years, and should take the right call. In fact, we hope we should never have such cases like this in future, and if we do have, then surely we will have much better understanding of what to do. Companies would be responding much faster than just laying off employees. We would rather look for more solutions and be more creative, perhaps. Thank you.